Sewing is such a great life skill, but how do you know when it's time to teach your child to sew? It's a question the sewing pros hear often, and there are several keys for success. I'm with Kris Thurgood of my girlfriend's quilt shop. She is getting us started. It is a common question that you hear a lot.
It is. It is. It's definitely a question that is coming up more and more often. A lot of times people think of, there's this perception that sewing is for those of us who are older, or sewing is just a woman's hobby, but it's actually not true. I mean, the more we can get our younger children sewing, the better, and whether they're a boy or a girl, there's room for everyone.
I feel like we hear a lot, and I contribute to this narrative, Kris, I'm sorry, but the people don't sew as much anymore. You say kids, though, have a particular interest. Why do you think that is?
They really do. I think, for one, they love the creation, being able to take something and make it and use their imagination. And so I think that's really important. And they also love that they have an ability to do something with maybe mom or dad standing right by them and maybe sharing this experience together with them.
All right, I know it will depend on age, personality, interest, maturity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what do you think is a roundabout golden age to start?
I really feel like it's up to the parents, that they know their child best. I've seen children start at the age of 5 usually.
Wow.
But as long as they have an adult sitting right by them, there are those children that just have that, that drive to be able to do it. I would say generally around 8 years old is probably the best.
And who's the best teacher?
I don't know. Maybe it's the parent. Maybe it's, the lessons that they can learn from another teacher. But really, the child is going to be teaching themselves a lot as they go through the experience, as they make mistakes, and they learn from them.
You've got some guidance as kids and maybe grandkids even start to lean into this and show interest no matter the age. The first is to create kind of a sewing ready space.
Yeah, it's really important to be able to create a space. We all have, that old machine from great-great-grandma that we hand down. And, sometimes that's not always the best machine to use, because you're going to have tension issues. You're going to have oil that spills on their projects. It's going to lead to frustration. So get them a nice little sewing machine that they can get started on, that that you have the right tension, you have the right thread, just creating a really great sewing space for them with a machine that is probably newer rather than older.
What's a good beginning machine if you're investing?
You're looking at probably the $200 to $300 range would be a great, range to start with.
And is there a brand or model that you like?
Well, of course, we love Baby Lock and Janome. Brother can also be a good model, but I would always recommend buying from a machine dealer. They're the ones who are going to be able to give you the service, the repair, the lessons. You talk about who's the best teacher. A lot of your local quilt shops will have instructors who can help you along the way.
Sometimes it's probably similar to the piano. There are a lot of moms I know that say there are certain kids I could teach the piano to.
Absolutely.
And there are certain kids that I need to send them out of house.
I even sent my own children to sewing lessons.
Did you?
Yes, I did, because sometimes
it's better to hear it from someone other than mom or grandma.
Exactly, yeah.
You encourage the teacher, whoever that is, to slow the flow or help the kids slow the flow. What do you mean by that?
Exactly. Well, there's a couple things. You think about, you would never put a child behind the car, the wheel, of the car, and have that gas pedal just go right down. And so it's important to slow the flow. If they get going too fast, they could run into a lot of problems, a lot of issues with direction, and possibly even take the chance of running over their finger. So it's important that if your machine has like a start-stop feature on it, it's this little button that you can see on the screen, that will allow you to be able to be right there and hitting the stop button if need be. I
was surprised to see this next point. It seems kind of small and housekeeping-esque, but you say pins need a home.
Yes, because you wouldn't believe how many, even adults, will put a pin in the mouth. And that is something we definitely don't want to teach our kids. So always having a little home for it. Even take a look at this little slap bracelet.
What?
Ta-da! Don't they feel powerful, right? And they can keep their needles right there, and it's super fun. But having some kind of pin cushion nearby is going to be important.
Kris Wonder Woman Thurgood.
There you go.
Bracelet pin
Isn't
storage.
that fun? Yes.
You say the role, though, of any beginning teacher is really to be a guide. The kids are going to take it at their own pace, and your job is just to gently encourage.
You gently encourage. And when I talk about being a guide, it's almost twofold. First of all, you're going to keep them, you're going to teach them to keep their hands on both sides of the needle and gently guiding their fabric, not pushing it, not tugging it, not forcing it. But also, in the other way is to think of yourself as a guide, and you're not pushing them. If they're having frustrations, if they're bored, maybe take a little break. Go do something else for a little while. We want this to be a good experience, a fun experience, knowing that it's inevitable. They're going to make mistakes. That's why we have a seam ripper, right? And just to have fun with it. So don't push your child too much into saying, you've got to learn how to do this, but give them time, give them space to be able to create. And if it's not perfect, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Finally, you say sewing terminology. If you start with that, it'll help the process be a little more comfortable.
Definitely. When you're talking about the sewing machine, for example, use the proper terms such as a backstitch or the tension dial. You can, of course, explain those in different ways, but you always want to refer back to the proper terminology. That way, as they get older and they progress and they start reading patterns, it's all going to make much more sense than, that little thingamajigger there, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the backstitch button, and this is why it's important.
So they're talking the talk.
Absolutely.
From the beginning. We're looking at one way to stay a step ahead. You're offering a new subscription box.
Oh my goodness,
for kids.
This has been received with wild reviews. People are loving it because, unfortunately, a lot of the schools are no longer offering the sewing classes in school, and so we see that there's this need for this younger generation to learn to sew. So we've introduced Thready, and we have a child subscription box as well as one for teens.
Cute.
So the box comes with 3 to 5 projects quarterly. They get online lessons from a great instructor that they can go back and review. All the kits come in it. A little gift comes in the box.
What a great idea.
And it's a great way for them to be able to experience something with another adult.
Details on your website.
Yes,
if we're interested in that.